Hey guys, and welcome to the third episode of the Reborn Football podcast. You're here with Fuego, and
Tons.
so today we're gonna do what we do in most of the episodes. So we're gonna start with our verse of the episode, and then we're gonna dive into some football content. So some stuff from this weekend's Premier League fixtures. And then we're also going to talk about our favorite and least favorite transfers of this transfer window, as well as some stuff around the Mbappe saga that most of you probably know is going on if you follow football. But I'm going to hand over to Tans now, and we're going to start with that verse.
So this week's verse of the episode is First Thessalonians 5, verse 22, which is simply reject every kind of evil.
Yeah, so this just came to my mind earlier today when I was just thinking about what we wanted to talk about today. And what came to mind was the story of Joseph. So, for those of you who don't know the story of Joseph in the Bible, Genesis 39 tells a bit of the story of Joseph. He was one of 12 children who his brothers disliked, and because he was his father's favorite, he was sold into slavery in Egypt, and he ended up being a slave in Potiphar's house. So he was a man who kind of feared God, served God, loved God, and he did everything according to the will of God, and therefore, he was favored. In Potiphar's house, he became the head of all the slaves. He became the head of everything in Potiphar's household. And there was a point at which Potiphar's wife began to notice him and took a liking to him. And at that point, then she was kind of enticing him and trying to get him to sleep with her. And, there were multiple occasions where she made passes at him and he turned her down, saying that, Potiphar has trusted me with everything in this house, and the only thing that he keeps away from me is you because you're his wife. And it got to a point one day where Joseph was alone in the house with Potiphar's wife. She grabbed him, literally grabbed his clothes. And, this is where this verse comes in. He literally ran. He ran to the point where his clothes, like she tore the clothes off of his body, and he just ran. That he's not going to allow anybody to be able to say that, oh, he did this, he did that, so that nothing could come back to him. At the end of the day, she framed him and said that he tried to, even though he didn't. He went to prison. Just fast forwarding the story, he rose through the ranks in prison again, to the point where he was called upon by the leader of, I think it was the Pharaoh, and he basically became the prime minister of one of the most, if not the most powerful country at the time, when there was a famine and Egypt had an abundance of food. So people were coming from different countries, including his own family members, to come and buy food from Egypt. So I think what I wanted to kind of pull from that story and from that verse in particular is that you don't wait for temptation. You don't, when you see it from afar, or you see it close, you don't kind of, play with it. You don't play with the idea that something could go wrong or you could be kind of tripped up by something. So you see something that, could easily kind of cause you to fall into sin. You run away from it, like Joseph ran. You don't take care for anything that you have there, anything that, could maybe give you comfort. You're more comfortable staying here, even though there's something there that could kind of cause you to sin. You just avoid it at all costs and run if you have to. So yeah, I think that's my take on that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting story, and it's really funny because in that situation, Joseph had every no right is not the word because he didn't have the right to sleep with another man's wife, but like you know a lot of guys in that same situation would have fallen, but he didn't fall, and temporarily he was actually punished for not falling because she now turned around and said that, oh, you know he tried to, well, for lack of a better phrase, he tried to move to her, this and that, and he ended up having to go to prison for it. But in the end, he ended up, as Femi saying, becoming the prime minister of the country. You know, at the end of the day, even though in that moment him doing the right thing seemed like the wrong thing, in the long term, it was a positive outcome for him and his life. So it can be like that in the temptations we face in everyday life as well. It can seem like in the moment that that's the right thing to do, but in the end, it will always be in the end, it's always right to flee from temptation and, to focus on the right things of God.
Yeah, and just to add there, there is a reward for those who kind of obey God's commandments. So we see there, that's the commandment. Now, it's even funny the way that that commandment is in the New Testament and the story of Joseph is in the Old Testament. It just shows how the Bible is all interconnected, that even before that was maybe something that Joseph could read, because he loved God and he served God, he knew that that was something that he needed to do to flee from all temptation. But we see that, yeah, in the moment, it may have seemed like the right thing to do it so that she keeps quiet and nothing happens. And of course, he was framed and he was wrongly imprisoned for it. But there's a reward for those who serve God diligently, because even though he had to go through some different experiences that, nobody wants to go through, those built him and got him ready for the reward, which was the responsibility that God gave him over such a great nation at the end of the day. So yeah, I think that's that.
Yeah, so I think we'll move into the football content now. And the main thing we wanted to focus on this week is the transfer window. So the transfer window this summer has been interesting, and we just want to talk about our favorite transfers, the transfers we think are definitely going to succeed, the ones that we're less sure about, and then we'll end the episode with slight link but a bit of a deviation when we talk about the Kylian Mbappe saga. So I'll start with a few of my favorite transfers of the summer so far. So firstly, as an Arsenal fan, the Declan Rice transfer. It's one that I've personally wanted for my club for a couple of years now, and I think it's just a perfect fit, not just like on the pitch with what he can bring, what he can bring to our starting lineup, but it's clear that he has a good relationship with the coach Arteta already, and he's ready to learn. He's learning quickly. He's getting better with every game already. So I think that's a transfer that that's gonna go down as a success. Now, living up to £105 million is really difficult, no matter how good you are as a player. But I think he has the ability to do that. So, Femi, maybe you could tell us about your favorite transfer for your club this season so far.
From my club, I wouldn't necessarily say I have a favorite transfer, because like I think Pep's only brought 3 players in. He's let about 5 people go. Is it 5? 4 people go.
A couple key players as well, Mahrez, Gundogan.
Yeah, Mahrez, Gundogan, Laporte has just moved to Al Nassr there in the last week. And I know João Cancelo is on his way out as
Oh
well.
yeah, to Barca, yeah, that came out today.
Is that confirmed?
There's what's it called? It's not fully confirmed, but there was I think they're getting closer to a full agreement.
But in terms of the additions now, I know he's brought in Kovacic from Chelsea. He's brought in Josko Gvardiol from Leipzig, and then just there in the last week, we talked about the last episode, Jeremy Doku has just been signed as well. Unused sub on Saturday. Am I right to say Saturday? Sorry, no, not Saturday. That was yesterday, Sunday. So unused sub yesterday, Jeremy Doku, but he's still a very interesting player. I'd say he's probably the most interesting of the three, seeing as he is an attacker. He's a fast winger, and he's somebody that... So you haven't had a fast winger in a while, since Sterling kind of left. It's
And
more
Sané.
been... And Sané, that's true. It's been more kind of technical wingers in the likes of when Bernardo plays out wide, or Grealish for drawing fouls, or Foden for just... I don't even know what you call Foden. You wouldn't really call him technical. He's just there. It's hard to explain that one there. But I think Doku brings a different kind of element to the attack that I don't think we've had since Sterling, which will be interesting to see how Pep uses that this season. So I'd say that's probably the most interesting signing for me for City this window.
Now, I mean, looking at other clubs, a signing that I touched on last week, but I think has the ability to be really really positive for Man United is the signing of Mason Mount. I did say last week that although it is right now, obviously it's the trend to hate on Mason Mount for every single thing that he does, and he is injured at the moment. But as I said last week, I do feel that if he's successful this season and if Eric Ten Hag can get the best out of him, then it will really raise the level of the Man United squad because of the Man United starting 11, because he works really hard, and he obviously has the ability to get
Mm.
goals and assists. He has shown that before. Obviously, it wasn't a great season for him last season. Injuries and just in that kind of Chelsea debacle of last season. But I think if Eric Ten Hag can get the best out of him, then I think Mason Mount could be a really good signing for United this season.
I think there's another kind of recency bias kind of gets a lot of football fans where a player has not even like a bad season, but even a bad patch when they're kind of one of the main characters at their club, and you're like, oh, this player is washed, this player is finished. I know I heard a lot of that about Sterling prior to him leaving City, and even for the whole of last season when he was at Chelsea. But we saw there on Friday, it's still the same Sterling. Like those players are still in those people. It's not a thing of like they've lost their talent or anything like that. Sometimes it is just a thing of giving them time, and they will gain their confidence back and all that stuff. Honestly, I don't think Mount has hit a patch where he's lost his confidence. I just think it's a thing of it's a poor run of form for a little while that he's gonna obviously get over and hopefully be a useful asset for Manchester United.
In particular from that Chelsea team as well, because it was last season was just obviously it was a really weird season for them. Their lowest Premier League finish in at least like 20, probably like at least 30 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of those players were quite evidently underperforming, but it wasn't all their fault. You could see that it was clear that like they didn't really have a manager. They went through like 3 or 4 managers last season. They
Yeah.
didn't really have a style of play that was getting the best out of all their players. So I feel like a lot of Chelsea players that were underperforming last year, especially the ones that have real quality, if you can put them in a system where they can succeed, Mount, Kovacic, Havertz, and then even at Chelsea, Sterling, Enzo Fernandez. I think we'll see a lot better from these type of players, this season. Even Carney Chukwuemeka, who had a really good performance against West Ham last week, unfortunately, came down with another injury. And that could even be another topic. A lot of teams that went to the US and played on kind of like their half like artificial pitches or whatever. A lot of those teams have had players come down with serious knee injuries. So that could be another topic. But yeah, Chelsea, a lot of Chelsea players, I don't think you should take what happened last season as, what should be the norm. That was a real, what's the word, anomaly.
Yeah, yeah. Another 2 people in particular that I'm thinking about are championship bounce players, so James Ward-Prowse and James Maddison. Funny enough, 2 Jameses. I think Maddison is definitely the type of player that Tottenham haven't had for a while, that they're looking for, that they need. I think it's just unfortunate that it's when he came that Kane has left, because him and Kane would have been a very, very,
That would have been
very
a wonderful partnership, man.
yeah. Obviously, he got his first goal there against Bournemouth. Nicely taken goal. I did see the move. It was just a very clever kind of through ball there, and he literally just had to touch it. It wasn't a difficult goal or anything like that. But I think this could be a very good season for him, and hopefully for Tottenham, if they're able to fill that hole that Harry Kane has left. I think Ward-Prowse kind of just slotted straight into that West Ham starting 11. I don't know how he did it, because I think his first, I don't remember if it was a goal or an assist that he got in his first championship game there at the start of the month, but he doesn't seem to have slowed down, even with, being relegated and then coming into the West Ham team. I think he's done quite well so far, and I hope to see more of that from him as well.
Another transfer that I'm really big on is Harvey Barnes to Newcastle. I've always been a fan of Harvey Barnes. I like his directness. You know, if you put him in the right positions, he will get goals, he will get assists. You know, even at Leicester. You know, a couple years back, I think 2021, he had a serious injury, and you know it was reported that he was on the verge of going to the Euros, or at least making the provisional like 30-man squad before they now whittled it down to the 26-man squad. You know, so if Harvey Barnes can, with the quality at Newcastle, Isak, Almiron, Bruno Guimaraes, all these players, can create chances for him. And I love when the ball goes out to him out wide and he's one on one with the defender, and you just know that he's about to excite, he's about to get you off your seat, try and make something happen, whether it's a goal, an assist, or even just beating his man. So I think that's gonna be a very positive signing for I think that's gonna be a very positive signing for Newcastle.
Last one that I'm going to bring up. I don't remember if we touched on this in a previous episode, but that David Raya deal is probably the best bit of business that I've seen this transfer window, even for the past maybe year, because it's kind of an option for both player and club, where Arsenal don't need to pay a crazy amount of money right now because it's a loan deal. And I would believe that they're not covering 100% of his wage bill either. So that's financially good for them, where they don't need to worry about a massive transfer fee until next summer if they decide to buy him. And then secondly, for him, because it's a loan deal, it's the type of thing where if he doesn't get joy, he can cut out at the end of the season as well. So I don't think it's going to hamper his or harm his development as a footballer if he doesn't actually get that number one spot over Ramsdale, which I don't think he's going to get, because Ramsdale is playing some very good football at this moment in time, and I think the competition is healthy for the two of them. So it's not going to harm his development, in my opinion, because it's just going to be a year as a number two, maybe playing some cup matches and stuff like that, but being able to kind of have that competition there with two goalkeepers who are equally good enough to play as a number one for Arsenal. So that's one that's quite interesting for me.
Another transfer that this one might not be as popular, but this is Alex Scott to Bournemouth. I've seen a few of his clips last season in the championship for, I believe, Bristol City.
Yeah,
and he's got some talent, man. He can beat a man, create a goal, create an assist. He's got a type of dribbling style that I really like. It kind of remind me of Emil Smith Rowe when he was fit and firing. So I think that could be a real coup for Bournemouth if he hits the ground running.
yeah. I know. Yeah, I remember hearing about him FA Cup kind of times last season, where even the Premier League teams, the big Premier League teams, were finding it difficult to try and keep him quiet. So he is an exciting player who I would think is someone who's going to take his chance at the Premier League.
Oh yeah, another big one actually. Onana for Man United. That's a huge transfer for them, man.
It's a huge transfer, right? Because there's hype around it, and no doubt he's a top quality goalkeeper. But I don't know about this transfer, honestly. Obviously preseason is preseason. You're allowed to make mistakes and all that stuff. But I don't know if you saw the cannonball meme going around on, I think it was Instagram that I ended up seeing it on.
Or is it the one where the preseason the guy scored from the halfway
it's
line?
not even the halfway line one. It's the in the first match of the season where he basically punched someone in the head.
Yeah, the one that should have been a penalty.
Should have been a penalty.
Yeah.
That is so funny, the way they were like run and do a cannonball, and they're like, and he's like, okay, but when do I do it? They say, oh, we'll tell you when to cannonball. And it's like, run, and then you see him running, and the cannonball, he jumps off and he just punches him in the head. It's like,
nah, I mean that was poor, but in terms of upgrade on what they had before, that might be like the biggest upgrade of the summer, because coming toward the end of David De Gea's United career, it was pretty clear. Like, I mean, it's been clear for a few years that, like, with the whole modern, goalkeeper having to be good with the ball at their feet,
Yeah.
it's been pretty clear for like a few years, but that he wasn't up to task. But like, he was still making a lot of really good saves, etc., etc. But it even got to the point where, like, he was letting goals in that he didn't used to let in before. A lot of United fans, been complaining and wanting a replacement for years. You'd even go on social media and just see random United fans scouting random goalkeepers because they were that desperate. But, I think Onana, how good he is on the ball, Ajax education,
Hmm.
Barcelona education, so I think that's really important for United. And then obviously as well, he is good, saving the ball. He does have a high profile mistake in him, but I think we all kind of know that. But at the same time, with your goalkeeper these days, I feel like with your goalkeeper, especially for the top clubs, you're willing to take that one high profile mistake
Hmm.
for how the overall, like, being able to be good with the ball at your feet, etc., how it improves your team.
But then you also kind of think to that like, say for example, if I'm looking at City for myself, I wouldn't think Ederson is the best goalkeeper. Like, he makes some very good saves, but at the same time, he's not called upon as often because I don't even think it's just the defense at this point. The defense and midfield protect him. So, do United have a system where their defense and midfield are going to give Onana the level of protection that the mistake kind of gene in him is not going to be called upon as much? Because you see, when you see Edison or Allison make a mistake, it's like a big mistake, but that's only because there are very few times that they're called upon. So most of the time they're comfy, and then there maybe be one or two little mistakes that they would make, and even at that, it doesn't come every match. So I feel like teams like Liverpool and City kind of have a structure in place where the keeper is somewhat protected, and that really isn't an issue for them, so they don't mind. But for a team like United, where honestly I don't think, even with injuries right now, Luke Shaw is out, and you've got this thing where have they got a back four that they can rely on as such that every week Ten Hag can say these four players are on the team sheet and he's satisfied that they're going to do a good defensive job
Yeah.
100% of the time.
The thing is, right, yeah, like, not yet, but like at the same time they had to upgrade the goalkeeper,
Mm-hmm.
even if they don't quite have the infrastructure around the goalkeeper yet. They still had to upgrade it, because if you even look in recent years of teams that have taken a big leap, City when they bought Edison,
Mm-hmm.
Liverpool when they bought Allison, us when we bought Ramsdale, and then you look at teams that haven't made that big step in recent years. Actually Chelsea did make that big step temporarily when they bought Mendy.
Yeah.
So, like, having a goalkeeper that is really good on the ball, etc. It's a really high floor raiser. It raises the technical floor of your team, because it takes your team from being like 10 outfield players and one goalkeeper to really being like 11 football players in possession. So I think that while, like, United might not have the structure around Onana yet to really make it, top quality, but the fact that he's there means that it's going to make life easier for other players. And then, even you could even look at it on the flip side, that because he's there and he's comfortable on the ball, it allows them to keep the ball more,
Mm-hmm.
which means that there would be less of those opportunities for him to make a mistake.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. I was just thinking there when you talked about Chelsea, with Kepa going on loan to
Real
Madrid,
Madrid,
and then
Robert Sanchez from Brighton.
yeah, because I didn't realize that they had signed Sanchez. That's another interesting one to kind of look at, because that's literally none of the keepers that they had last season are there anymore as kind of first or second choice. But maybe that's one just to keep an eye on. Um, I'm not sure there's much to touch on in terms of this weekend's football. United made a very interesting comeback. Liverpool also a
Very
very
good.
heroic comeback as well.
Arsenal almost did, but um, yeah, we couldn't finish our dinner, so it's not easy. But
Uh,
Chelsea played really well at the weekend.
yeah,
Tottenham as
yeah.
well. City, didn't have smoothest of games, but they got the 3 points in the end. Absolute stunner from Rodri, by the way. You know.
I think I was just looking at kind of the build up to the Rodri goal for the few minutes before it. I can't. Who was it that even scored Sheffield's goal? That Jaden Bogle. Jaden Bogle had like a 20-minute cameo and he actually held it down quite well. But I noticed Kyle Walker was pretty much the person who made the mistake that led to the Jaden Bogle goal. He was kicking himself. He was pissed. Like he the electronic kind of like barrier thing
Yeah.
that will be showing all the ads.
Oh yeah, I seen him kicking it. Yeah.
He broke it. Like he actually, like there was a little, the way that it has like static kind of display on it. He literally stamped it and broke it. And then maybe like 3 or 4 minutes later, he was just there, darting down the right wing. Even for the Rodri goal, I think the ball was crossed into the box and it missed everybody. And Larishi was on the other side and he was trying to kind of guide the ball out. But Kyle Walker was on his back and he didn't give up on the ball. That's something that I really admired about that there, that he made a mistake and instead of kicking himself that, we're not gonna get the 3 points anymore, that I've basically wasted the game for the team. He kept going. That shows kind of the character, the kind of experience that he has there. It's probably the reason why he's the vice captain there. So he's leadership structure confuses me so much.
Yeah, I'm
It's confused me for years. Like Pep, I feel like Pep has this love for Ruben Diaz that nobody can actually understand. He's a very vocal and very kind of leadership type player.
Is he not part? He's part of the leadership.
He's part of the leadership group, but it was kind of weird when, say, I think it's 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago, when we still had the likes of Fernandinho was there. So Fernandinho was captain, Gundogan was vice. I think we had Aguero was number 3, but I was injured. Sterling was number 4. Kyle was number 5. Rodri was, De Bruyne was number 6 or something like that. But then at some point, whenever he bought Diaz was now just slotted in there. That you don't see Fernandinho, you don't see Gundogan. Diaz is wearing armband, and I see Kyle Walker on the pitch. I see Sterling on the pitch. I see De Bruyne on the pitch, and I was like, "What's going on?"
Now the whole CE captain thing is actually really funny because over the past like 5-6 years, like when I first started watching ball, Vincent Kompany was that captain. He was that captain for years.
Yeah.
It was always Kompany captain, Yaya Toure vice captain. That's all I knew for City. So you see Yaya Toure with the armband, you'd be like, yeah, Kompany's not playing. But then as soon as Kompany left, he was the captain. Then I think the season David Silva was the captain, and then he left. And then Fernandinho was the captain for a couple of years, and then he left. Aguero was a vice captain, he left. Sterling was a vice captain at the point, he left. Now Gundogan's left. Is Kevin De Bruyne going to leave this season?
I don't even know. I think like his injury is probably the second half of the season gonna tell us what happens to him for the rest.
Wait, De Bruyne's club captain, right?
I believe so. They didn't announce anything, but I believe so because Pep started him.
Yeah, he was the one wearing it at the start of the season. Yeah,
and he wasn't 100% when he started him, so I think that's part of the reason why. But yeah, City's leadership structure is a bit booky. Like they're all leaders, so everybody who's in there should be in there. But like the order is a bit booky in my opinion.
Moving on to another captain, talking about the captain of the French national team, Kylian Mbappe, and he has had a lot of commotion and turbulence in his career over the past 2 to 3 years. He's signed that ridiculous contract. Was it last year? He's clearly wanted to go Real Madrid. Earlier this summer, they were talking about him going to Saudi Arabia, signing one ridiculous contract, and then just being allowed to go to Real Madrid after
750 mil for 1 year.
Yeah, I think it wasn't like 13 million a week or something like that, man.
It's crazy money, anyways,
bro. But it's clear that he's kind of bringing like an NBA style player power type of dynamic, to football. The fact that PSG though even offered that contract, maybe it's a wider issue of PSG in itself because I don't think you understand how damaging it would be for PSG's brand
to lose him.
if Kylian Mbappe leaves, because Kylian Mbappe is literally the Prince of Paris.
Mm.
He's France's best player. I'm pretty sure he was born in Paris. You know, PSG already have a problem with getting the local Parisian players. For some reason, they just don't take advantage of a really really high hotspot for talent. So if Mbappe was to leave, I feel like Mbappe leaving is probably worth the money that they paid him, or maybe close. I don't know, like maybe close to the money that they're paying him.
I don't even know. Because there are knock-on effects other than obviously the money is it's a big financial kind of burden that they won't have anymore.
Mm.
But you need to think about shirt sales. You need to think
I literally have
about
an Mbappe jersey at home,
that type of thing. There are a lot of different things that go into like image rights, all of that stuff. Are things that are just gonna lose them money
Mbappe goes.
as soon as he goes. But there's a thing that I'm noticing about him that he's a main character and he knows it,
Yeah,
but he kind of I don't know how to explain it, but he has like he has probably the biggest ego in football right now.
yeah,
Rightly so, because he proves it on the pitch. So it's not just rubbish where he's signing these crazy contracts, making these crazy demands, making
for
these
nothing.
threats for no reason. Like he's delivering on the pitch. So it's the type of thing where the PSG kind of rejects were training with each other, and he was there because they're like, you're not gonna play if you're deciding to act like this. But he's already back training with the first team and playing
And
with the first
scoring
team.
goals.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's a thing with football in particular, like the players are going to know the players know who's the best player on the team.
Mhm.
If you've played football before, you know who the best player on the team is. You know who the good players on the team is, and then you know who's not so good. If a guy had Mbappe's ego and he wasn't performing, he wouldn't be able to get away with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like he does back it up on the pitch, but sometimes you do have to wonder where it might just be a little too much.
Like where does it stop? Where do you
know-
draw the line
you know.
between ethically kind of football is not even ethical at all because where's the money where's the money coming from at the end of the day? But yeah, because eventually Mbappe is gonna get bored. Like he's been, it doesn't seem like long, but Mbappe is 24 at this point,
Yeah,
and he made his World Cup debut at
19.
19. At that point, he was already pretty much a
Yeah, like
PSG first team player.
Yeah.
So he's been around, kind of doing it at the level that he's doing it now for about 5-6 years. And whereas we kind of still remember Mbappe as this 19-year-old who scored loads of goals at the World Cup on his World Cup debut and won the World Cup on his World Cup debut. It has been a while. Like 6 years is no joke. Like 6 years from now, Mbappe is what? Mbappe is 30.
Oh yeah, almost 30. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
So like with Mbappe, yeah, like the thing is, right, a lot of people say he's got to move now because PSG have no chance of winning the Champions League. But the funny thing about that I actually say, like in response to that, is that it would actually mean a lot more for Mbappe to win the Champions League at PSG.
Mm-hmm.
Hometown, the best club in his country. He's already brought home a World Cup for his country, bringing home a Champions League for his city. That would make him immortal in France if he isn't
Pretty
already.
much. Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's a you don't really know. It's a dilemma, because you could just go Real Madrid, win the Champions League in max 2 years, but it would mean a lot more for him to win at PSG, and that might just be what's on his mind. Every time he decides to like, oh, I want to leave, then he just turns back around. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I still feel like half the time he doesn't even want to leave. It's more a thing of let's see how much money we can milk out of this transfer scare this time from them. Scare them a little bit and see what happens, that type of way. But I mean, at some point I think it's gonna settle because at this point I kind of see that it's not about the money for him, it's more about ego. So if as you said, if he's to win the Champions League with PSG when Neymar is gone, Messi is gone, and all of the kind of big egos, big names, big people are gone, and he's just like the full main character, and there's no, oh, Messi is going to win the Ballon d'Or, oh, Neymar is this player, that type of way. So if he's to win it like that, despite not having Messi, not having Neymar, it would be so much more of like the fairy tale he's kind of done it all, and then he's just waiting for his Ballon d'Or. But I still think that because of the Ballon d'Or, he's not gonna continue with these antics much longer, especially because he still does have competition for it when Messi and
To be
Dembele
fair,
are gone.
margins are fine though because a couple players scored their penalties at the World Cup final, and he would be the runaway favorite for the Ballon d'Or right now.
Definitely, yeah,
You,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like, and that's even another topic of discussion. Why is there a little bit too much emphasis on the World Cup when it comes to individual awards? For World Cup years, because Messi's whole body of work this past year is not Ballon d'Or worthy,
It's
but
not spectacular like that.
because he won the World Cup, he is the favorite for the Ballon d'Or.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's justified. I feel like it should be Haaland or Mbappe in honest truth.
Yeah.
But I guess that's a conversation for another day.
I mean, it's something that we'll see when the Ballon d'Or kind of comes out.
I think that's October and something like that.
Yeah. Um.
Yeah, I think we're gonna bring today's episode to an end. So I just want to say thank you for all the support on our first couple of episodes. Really enjoy it. We'd appreciate that if you're new, you can, subscribe, like, follow all of our social media platforms. We got Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and then our Instagram, because we will have videos coming up soon. So that's where our Instagram will be mainly focused on. So appreciate all the support so far. We appreciate all the support so far. And I think I'll let Femi take us up.
Right. So appreciate you guys, and we'll see you all in the next episode.